Jalen Warren is one of 3 players that you need to be buying in dynasty leagues ahead of week 1. We'll tell you who the other 2 are next.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. He is Michael Fabiano. And on today's show, we're going to tell you 3 players that you need to go out and trade for ahead of week 1. And Fabs, let's start with Jalen Warren, who just signed a new contract extension with the Steelers, locking him up through the 2027 season. Should we be buying him in our dynasty leagues right now?
Yeah, I think because he's relatively inexpensive. I mean, he's not going to be a player that you need to be giving up first-round rookie picks for. I think you could get him relatively cheap. And the good thing is that now we have clarity in the Pittsburgh backfield. Listen, at least for this season, Jalen Warren, I think, is going to be the early down back. What have we heard about Kaleb Johnson? He can't pass protect very well. And when you've got an old quarterback in Aaron Rodgers who is got to have faith in that running back who's back there when he's looking to throw the football and going through all of his progressions, I think you're going to see Jalen Warren on the field more often than you will the rookie out of Iowa. And also keep in mind, Kenneth Gainwell was playing ahead of Kaleb Johnson at times during the preseason. So this could be more of a 3-headed monster. I think Gainwell, obviously the least valuable from a fantasy perspective, but Jalen Warren right now is a guy that you can go out. He's not going to be expensive, as I said. I know Kaleb Johnson is more attractive because he's much younger. Jalen Warren is 26, turns 27 this upcoming November. But still, if you're in a situation where you just need a running back, maybe you're looking for a flex option for the next couple of years, a guy who can catch the ball out of the backfield. He was the running back 39 last year, but he actually averaged more fantasy points per touch than Najee Harris, and he had 38 catches last season, and he only saw 10.5 touches per game. So if Warren gets into that 15 touch per game territory, I mean, you're looking at a guy who can catch 50 plus passes easily in this offense.
And we've been telling you to buy Jalen Warren all summer long. And one of the reasons why is we thought that there was a chance that he could get a contract extension. He was in the last year of his deal. And while it's not like record-setting money or anything like that, it's a nice little extension, and it's going to tie him to the Steelers for the next several years. Now, I still think Kaleb Johnson is a really good talent. I think he's a strong fit in Arthur Smith's offense. But I wonder, because of his woes as a pass catcher, we saw a couple balls clank off of his hands during practice and in the preseason. And because he's pretty inexperienced as a pass blocker, if that just doesn't mean we're going to see a bunch of Jalen Warren this year. And one of the things we should talk about, Fabs, is like last year, we saw Aaron Rodgers throw the ball a ton. I don't expect him to do that this year, but I would not be surprised if those passing attempts are way up for what we're used to seeing in an Arthur Smith offense, and that could be more targets for Jalen Warren.
And also, when you think about it too, again, beyond DK Metcalf at wide receiver, I mean, what do the Steelers really have? I mean, you know, you've heard some positive stuff about Roman Wilson. You could talk about Calvin Austin. Obviously, you got the 2 tight ends there as well. But I think, like I said, Jalen Warren could catch 50 balls out of the backfield this upcoming season. And if you look at the split last year with Warren and Najee, obviously Najee was a guy who was more in line to being a featured back, although Warren got his share of the burn. Now, I think that's going to be close. And I think Warren's going to be the guy who leads this backfield in touches this upcoming season, especially if Kaleb can't improve as a pass catcher, especially if Kaleb can't improve in terms of his pass blocking. Imagine if a defense blitzes Aaron Rodgers and Kaleb Johnson misses an assignment. Rodgers is not going to be a happy camper, and neither is Arthur Smith, and neither will Mike Tomlin be. So Kenneth Gainwell also factors into this. But right now, going into this season, the Steelers running back that I want is Jalen Warren. Long term, is it Kaleb Johnson? Of course. I mean, he's younger back. But maybe in the next year, possibly 2, Jalen Warren's the guy that I want until Kaleb Johnson can prove that he can improve in terms of some of those deficiencies that he has right now.
I also think Jalen Warren is just like good at football. Like, I don't think he's a generational back and he's not Derrick Henry or Saquon Barkley, but I think he's like a pretty good player.
Yeah.
And anytime that he's played, he's been good. Now, the one knock on Jalen Warren, actually, there's two. He puts the ball on the ground a little bit, and he did that in the preseason, and he struggles to stay healthy. But again, when you're talking about RB30 prices, you're not even counting on him to be your RB2. And yet I kind of think, at least for this year, he's going to give you at least low-end RB2 production. I'm buying him. But what does this mean for Kaleb Johnson, who is being drafted as RB17 in the latest batch of Dynasty League Football ADP? We know that Warren is going to be there for 75% of his rookie contract. How much does this hurt his value?
Sometimes, Marcus, you got to show a little patience, just like Guns N' Roses told us so many years back when music was actually really good. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but I don't know that he's going to make a massive impact. When the Steelers drafted him, I was like, oh, this is a good fit. You know, and then you hear about the deficiencies in terms of his pass catching and his pass blocking. And, you know, that's why we analyze what we can when a player comes into the pro level based on what he did in college. And then you start to see things in training camp in the preseason. You start to see a guy like Kenny Gainwell getting a little more touches. That's a little bit worrisome. So I think it's going to be more of a slow burn for a Kaleb Johnson, unlike an Omarion Hampton, unlike obviously an Ashton Genty, unlike seemingly a Trevion Henderson. Johnson may take a little bit of time before he flips the script in Pittsburgh's backfield and becomes the lead back like Najee was last year.
I want to run through some running backs that are being drafted in around where Kaleb Johnson is going. Kaleb Johnson, 22 years old. Would you prefer him or James Cook right now in your dynasty leagues?
James Cook.
Okay. Chuba Hubbard, RB20.
That one's closer. Because Hubbard, I believe, is what, 25, 26, somewhere in that ballpark. I'd probably go
26,
with Kaleb.
26. Yep.
I'd probably go with Kaleb there.
All right. Last one. This has really flipped over the last 2 months, and it's understandable why, but Quinshon Judkins, RB21.
See, here's the thing. I guess I'm going to die on the Quinshon Judkins bike mountain. I don't know. Like, I've been trying to get him everywhere because I'm taking the discount. And now we hear Mary Kay Cabot, who's obviously great, a reporter out in Cleveland, who's saying that like he may be back with the team this week. And that's what I talked about last week, Marcus. All it takes is one report that says that Quinshon Judkins is going to be with the team, and all of a sudden everyone's going to go bananas on him and start drafting him higher. I'd rather have Judkins.
I think it's close for me. I think Judkins is the better talent. I think I trust Pittsburgh's young offensive line a little bit more. I trust Pittsburgh's organization more.
Well,
but I could go either way.
Yeah.
I go either way. Yeah. So there you go. There's Jalen Warren. We think he's a good buy, especially if you need like just RB2 production, but you don't want to pay RB2 prices. Go out and get Jalen Warren before week 1, and I promise you'll be happy. Let's talk about another player that I think you should go after hard in your dynasty leagues. We'll get to Xavier Worthy next. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. The NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium, surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle. It can be incredibly frustrating between login screens, prices jumping up at checkout, and so many other disastrous things that can happen. But that's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You will always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. I've already bought several tickets for the NFL season, and I can't tell you how simple and easy Game Time has made it. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that is promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, download Game Time today. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is almost here, just a couple days away, and FanDuel is making sure that you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love FanDuel because it lets me bet however I want to bet. Like I love futures bets. I want to bet on who I think is going to make it to the playoffs, who's going to be in the Super Bowl, who's going to throw for the most yards. Like that's how I get the most enjoyment out of FanDuel. FanDuel makes it quick, easy, and the best way to add just a little bit more energy to the games that you're already watching on Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That is FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We have an important request from you guys. Locked On wants to hear from you. We've put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and to make your favorite podcast even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't like, and give us some more information about our advertising. So go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that is lockedonpodcast.com/survey, and you can also find the link in the show notes. All right, let's talk about Xavier Worthy, because I'm all in on Xavier Worthy this year. Fabs, what is your thoughts on Worthy? Are you buying him before the season starts?
Yeah, no doubt about it. What I saw from him in the second half of last season, and especially in the Super Bowl and the playoffs, like this kid played, I mean, like he was a 10-year veteran. The numbers that he put up were phenomenal. Go back and if you don't remember that Super Bowl against the Eagles where they did not fare well, Xavier Worthy was great. Now, you also have to factor in Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice is going to be suspended for the first 6 games of the season, and then maybe it gets a little cloudier. But when you also factor in that Travis Kelce will be marrying Taylor Swift at some point and likely retiring after the season is over, yes. Well, then you've got your 2 top guys in Kansas City for Patrick Mahomes for the next however many years it's going to be. It's going to be Rashee Rice. It's going to be Xavier Worthy. You know, Hollywood Brown is on a short-term contract. So the Chiefs passing game could look a lot different going into 2026. It's funny too, because I know this is redraft, but I have been alternating which Chiefs wide receiver I'm getting in my drafts because I don't want too many shares of either one of them. So like in one draft, I'll take Rashee Rice, and then another draft, if Worthy's there, I'll take Worthy. I like both of them. I think Rashee Rice is more of an alpha and has more upside from a fantasy perspective, but Worthy's playmaking skills, his abilities, and maybe a change in the Chiefs offense starting next season, I would think, to more of a let's throw the football downfield and make some big plays, a lot of chunk yardage, as our friend Elliot Harrison would like to say. That could change in 2026. I think the offense is going to remain mostly the same this year. But moving forward, that could end up being one of the best fantasy duos at wide receiver that we have in the league in Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy.
So I've got a lot of thoughts here. I want to start with this. In redraft, I prefer Worthy, right? I want Worthy on my team this year. Dynasty, I prefer Rashee Rice, but I'm perfectly fine going out and getting both of these guys.
I just have so many teams, Marcus. I don't want to have too many shares of everybody. I do that too. Like with CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson, I alternate if I'm in that spot and they're both available, just because, you know, you and I were in so many leagues together. I just rather flip it a little bit so I don't have every league containing, you know, the same 2 or 3 people.
Yes, I totally get it. So first of all, let me start with this big picture with the Chiefs. I think this is a team that's going to go back to leaning more on their offense over the next 3 years. And the reason why I say that is you're getting Chris Jones, who's getting older. I think he's 31 at this point. Still an awesome player. Trent McDuffie, their all-pro cornerback, he did not sign a contract this offseason. He's going to be going into this year playing without a new deal. I wonder if the Chiefs are going to give him $27, $28 million like some of the other top corners. They drafted Josh Simmons in round 1 this year. They're incredibly young on the offensive line with Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith, and they went out and got some more offensive linemen in free agency. I just think that Andy Reid over the next 3 years is going to shift this team back to being more explosive on offense. And having a young Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice with Patrick Mahomes is how you do that. The other part of it is Andy Reid has a pretty good track record with, let's say, smaller receivers. Obviously, Tyreek Hill is the number one guy, right? I don't think Xavier Worthy's Tyreek Hill. But like Deshaun Jackson had a 1,100-yard season, I think, in 2009 with Andy Reid, and that was with Donovan McNabb and Michael Vick throwing him the ball. I think Worthy can be better than Deshaun Jackson, and I think Mahomes is better than Donovan McNabb and Michael Vick. So why couldn't we see a 1,200-yard from scrimmage season from Xavier Worthy in double-digit touchdowns? We almost had that last year.
And you'll see him lined up in the backfield, and they'll get, because they know how explosive he is. You know what they say about speed kills, and they try to utilize him in an opportunity for him to use that speed to make big plays. So I'm right there with you. I don't know if there's going to be a big change this year in the offense, like I said, because Kelsey is still there. Rashee Rice is not going to be there for the first 6 weeks. You wonder how long it's going to take for him to kind of get his sea legs under him. I think it'll probably be quicker, than some might project. But if we're looking long term, and we are doing that in Dynasty, and you look at two young dudes who have already shown flashes of brilliance from a statistical perspective, even though they're small sample sizes, I totally get it. But when there's no Kelsey, when Hollywood Brown isn't there anymore, and not that he makes a big impact anyways, but although you could potentially start him this week against the Chargers because there's no Rashee Rice, I feel like you are going to have an offense that's going to be throwing the ball more. Maybe Patrick Mahomes is actually like an elite fantasy quarterback again. Again, I don't see it this year, but maybe in the future. And based on that, he is potentially going to have two very good young weapons, and fantasy managers should take advantage of that and go make sure they get these guys now before the value starts to go through the roof.
We saw Xavier Worthy from week 10 on, including the postseason, like 10 total games. He averaged like 75 yards from scrimmage a game. He was scoring about more than, it was basically a half touchdown every single game. If he averages that for the whole season, 75 yards, and he scores 8 or 9 touchdowns, we're talking about like a pretty clear-cut wide receiver too. And honestly, I think the ceiling is just even higher than that because he's put on some weight. Worthy talked about this offseason, how he didn't have any idea what he was doing last year. He said they were just designing him touches. But as the year went on,
in the first half.
Yeah, and remember, his first touch went for a touchdown, right? But he said he just feels so much more comfortable in the offense. He's playing all 3 receiver spots. He knows where he's supposed to be. I'm just open to the range of outcomes being much, much higher here than anybody anticipates.
I like Rice more. I know you like Rice more, but when you're talking about Xavier Worthy, I do think you're looking at potentially a high-end wide receiver 2 in Dynasty for a long time.
Didn't Jeremy Maclin have some like pretty high-end wide receiver 2 seasons?
Yeah, with the Eagles. Yeah, he had 1,000 yards. I don't know if he had multiple 1,000-yard seasons. I know he dealt with some injuries, and then eventually he ended up in Kansas City too. But yeah, Jeremy Maclin had his moment as a very
1,300 yards
player.
1,300 yards and 10 touchdowns. Actually, he had double-digit touchdown seasons twice in Philadelphia.
Yeah. Yep. And that duo with Deshaun Jackson. Yeah. I remember that.
I think there's a chance that you and I are doing this show like after week 4. We're like, oh, we're ranking Xavier Worthy as a top 15 dynasty receiver already. And because I think he's that type of talented, and it's an offense that frankly, I think is going to have to score a lot of points. Fabs, you look at like the schedule early on. And again, I know this is a dynasty podcast, but if the Chiefs are having to score 27, 30 points a game in the first month of the season, I promise you Xavier Worthy's dynasty value is going to go way up. Trade for him now before that value skyrockets.
Couldn't agree more.
All right, let's talk about a year 2 breakout running back that you and I both absolutely love. Let's get to Trey Benson next. This episode is brought to you by Yahoo Fantasy. The NFL season is right around the corner, and you can already feel the buzz. Fantasy football season is here. Everyone's researching, drafting, and building their championship squads. And if you haven't joined the league yet, now is the time, and it's all happening on Yahoo Fantasy. This year, I'm playing fantasy football on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too. Whether you're a first-timer or a veteran creating your millionth league, Yahoo Fantasy is loaded with fun ways to compete and brand new features that make the game even better. And with season kickoff on September 4th, now is the time to start playing on Yahoo Fantasy, which offers so many fun ways to compete. Like if you want more fun ways to play, try the new Guillotine Leagues on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's only one team left standing. And you want to play instantly with friends, try the new Draft with Friends mode. And if you prefer the classics, you can get the crew together and go head-to-head in a private league. And if there's no crew, no friends, no problem. Join a public league, the easiest way to play. The NFL season kicks off on September 4th. So don't wait. Start your league today. Draft now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That is yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you could end up leaving money on the table. But that is where Monarch Money comes in. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, and get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever having to touch a spreadsheet. We've been using Monarch Money for just about over a year now, and it's unbelievable how much money they've been able to help us save. We've cut back on some subscriptions and some spending, and it's been so easy to use. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use Locked On NFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That is 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL season previews on Locked On NFL. Every division winner, breakout stars, and Super Bowl contenders in an 8-episode series with everything you need to know about the NFL season. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, Fabs, let's talk about some year 2 breakout running backs. Who do you got?
Yeah, I like Trey Benson. I've been talking about him for a lot of the preseason and obviously in the offseason. 22 years old, entering his second season. Didn't do much as a rookie. That's because James Conner was really good last year. I mean, he had over 1,500 total yards, 9 touchdowns, over 250 fantasy points. But it was also the first time in his career he had played at least 16 games in a single season. He had missed at least 4 games in each of the previous 2 years. And we heard Conner himself, and listen, I don't know if this is going to be true or not, but he said maybe a month or two ago that they have 2 RB1s in Arizona. Benson is a guy who the Cardinals like, and he's the future of this backfield. And Conner is, entering his age 30 season. And, Marcus and I both know that when you get to that age, sometimes the wheels start to fall off. Some fall off quickly, some fall off slowly. And I do wonder if the Cardinals won't use Benson more often this season. Again, James Conner as a healthy running back will be the one. There's no doubt about that. But do they give Benson more burn in order to keep Conner from burning out? Because he's had a lot of touches in his career, and we all know he's had some injury woes. And right now, I mean, Trey Benson's ADP is, 118. He's the running back 41. So there's a lot of upside with this kid. I get it. Conner has 3 more years left on his deal, but the Cardinals also have an opt-out after 2026. So there is a world where Trey Benson could be starting for the Cardinals as soon as next season. And if Conner misses time and Benson pops, well, then all of a sudden, maybe you got a 50-50 split on your hands when both of these guys are playing, but you want to get him now before he does pop and before the price goes up.
Fabs, there's always a few offenses every year that outperform expectations for one reason or another. Maybe it's a quarterback just has a great season, a new coaching staff. And it's those offenses that we are trying to figure out, like which ones are going to do that and make that leap, or the ones that we want to target in Dynasty, because all of the players are kind of artificially underrated. And I kind of think the Cardinals could be one of those teams where at the end of the year, we look back and, hey, Arizona finished with the 7th highest scoring offense, and Marvin Harrison Jr. was a hit, and Kyler Murray was a hit, and Trey McBride was a hit. And if that's the case, someone like Trey Benson is going to be a hit as well, because he's going to get a lot of opportunities. We think he's going to be likely the goal line back at some point this year. He's just a much, much better athlete. I think he can provide some of those explosive plays. And you're right with James Conner. Like, I love James Conner. Saw him shopping at a JCPenney a couple months ago up here in Erie.
Wait, that JCPenney, they still, I didn't even realize. Was it not Sears?
It's a Bosk. Well, it's technically a Boscov's he was shopping at. But
okay.
Anyways, you do have to wonder at some point, like, James Conner came out in the 2017 draft, I believe. It's been a while, right? I think Trey Benson is prime for a big season.
Listen, I would love to see that. I don't know that he can have a big season truly unless Conner does miss time, which obviously, as I mentioned, that's something that's happened throughout his career, except for last year. But the upside long term for Trey Benson is huge. And yeah, I mean, listen, the NFL is only predictable in its unpredictability. And if James Conner is not as effective this year after a big workload last year, or he gets hurt, Benson comes in. Think about, we always think about the triplets with the Cowboys, and I don't want to talk about them, but you talk about the Cardinals, they could have like the quartet. You got Kyler, you got Benson, you got Marv, and you got McBride. Like that is a pretty attractive fantasy quartet. And that could be a lot of fun to watch in Arizona. And also remember, for this season, I know we're dynasty, but for this season, the Cardinals have one of the easiest schedules in the National Football League. And that's going to be big. They play the Saints in week 1, start your Cardinals, but that also is very important for this season, is that the schedule is very, very favorable, at least based on the data from last year.
I want to put out another possibility. I think there's a chance that Benson doesn't have like a big fantasy season, but we still see his value shoot up, right? Let's say he looks really good, but James Conner stays healthy. Maybe he's not getting RB2 production, but in 2026, the Cardinals move on from James Conner, and we saw enough for Benson where he should be a guy that we consider as a top 24 running back every week. RB 41 right now in dynasty leagues. I just think this is a really good opportunity for him to improve his fantasy value, his dynasty value, and I want to get on it now before the season starts. It's all it's going to take. It's one of those games where he rips off a big run and scores a touchdown, and then everybody's going to be in.
I compare it to the situation with the Jets, not so far as like Breece Hall is an older back, because he's not, obviously, but how long is Breece Hall going to remain with the Jets? And Braylon Allen is younger and behind him, and it showed some flashes. And if the Jets, I know you think that Breece Hall could be on the trade block during the course of the season, whatever they do.
Cowboys got a couple first-round picks we can throw at him now.
So I bet, oh God, no, don't do that to me, please. Right. Jerry Jones with the TCU connection. All right. I'm going to cry. But anyways, I did tear up in the last podcast because I'm so disgusted with Jerry Jones. I'm done. But Braylon Allen's another situation where cheap right now, just like Trey Benson, and potentially could be playing a bigger role as soon as this year and certainly moving into the future. So those are the guys you want to target. Talented guys who just need that opportunity, who may not get it this year fully, but you can see it happening at some point in the near future.
Bingo. And again, we both think this Cardinals offense could be way better than what anybody is predicting, right? Maybe they are a top 5 offense. And if that's the case, everybody on this offense can eat. So go out and get Trey Benson before it's too late. All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Dynasty Football your first listen every single day. Make sure you check out the show on YouTube, download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Follow Fabs on Twitter at Michael_Fabiano. I'm at Marcus_Mosher. And we've got football this week. We're going to get you ready for week 1. We'll tell you who to start, who to sit. We've got Matt Williamson coming on the show on Wednesday. So tune in. Make sure it's a busy week here on the Locked On Dynasty Football podcast. We can't wait to get you ready to win your dynasty championships.